Hello, and welcome to 5-Minute Math. Today we are looking at the Algebra 1 concept of graphing functions and identifying features. This is standard A.3C in the great state of Texas, and we are using item number 41 of the 2021 released STAAR test. If you haven't done so already, please go ahead and take a moment to pause the video, work this problem out on your own, unpause it, and we will look at our answers together. So we have linear function t, and they've given us an x-intercept, and they've given us a y-intercept. All right, so which graph best represents this t? Well, unfortunately, neither of these terms are actually determined for us. There's no definition here. They're not on your mathematics chart, your reference materials. So we need to define these two terms first. X-intercept and y-intercept. They are related, just slightly different. All right, so the x-intercept is where the line, now the line just represents the function, but we'll just call it the line, crosses the x-axis. And then the y-intercept, if you are following along, is where the line crosses not the x-axis, but since it's the y-intercept, it's going to cross the y-axis, so that makes sense. Now this y-intercept is something that we see a lot when we get a function here in slope-intercept form. It's called slope-intercept form because this m right here is our slope, and this b is an intercept. Now, it's the y-intercept, but it is one of our two intercepts. So this, if we ever get a y equals mx plus b form, that b is our y-intercept. The x-intercept, we also will refer to it as the 0. Now, here's why. When we are looking at this function, right, so this is t, so we're looking for the function of t of x. We want that to be 0. What happens, what is this x value when t of x makes 0? Well, t of x, right, that represents your range, and then your x represents your domain. And what else do we usually use to represent the range? Well, that's usually going to be a y. So really, we're looking at what happens when y equals 0. Well, when y is 0, that means you are right here on this x-axis. I'll use c as an example. This is where y equals 0. So that's why sometimes we'll call it the x-intercept, sometimes we'll call it the 0. Really, we're looking for the same thing. Where does that line cross the x-axis when y equals 0? Or in this case, when t of x equals 0. So let's look. We've got a x-intercept of -1. Well, I mean, look at a right here. I'll tell you that right there. That x-intercept is going to be 5. So that's not right. It's what the y-intercept should be. And then you've got the y-intercept of -1. So they just completely inverted the x and the y-intercept. So that's not going to work for us. Let's check b. So we've got the y-intercept here of 5. Okay, that's good. And I've got the x-intercept of, oh, look, 1. I need -1. Okay, so that's what they'll do. They'll flip the sign, and instead of being -1, it's a +1. So half of it is correct, but that's really not what we're looking for. Let's check our c. So here's our x-intercept, because remember, that's our x-axis. That's the 0, because t of x equals 0. That's going to be -1. So that's good. And then we've got, it looks like we've got a -5. Y equals -5. Not what we're looking for. We want a +5. So let's hope it's D. So right here, I've got my 0, or my x-intercept is -1. That's good. And then I've got my y-intercept. That equals 5. Also good. My answer here is D.